What's the difference between anti-shock shutter and the silent shutter? If you ever wondered about that, this video is for you. Hi there, I'm Peter Forsgard, an Olympus visionary and a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. Let's get right into the business. Silent shutter is a great feature. With the silent shutter, you can shoot anywhere without making any noise. It's a great thing if you need to shoot somewhere, like in a concert or in a meeting or in a radio studio, wherever you don't want to make any noise. That's also good for candid shots. Nobody knows that you took a picture if you have the silent shutter. Electronic shutter is also very good for long exposures. You won't have any vibrations from the shutter because there is no moving parts when you're using the electronic shutter. And also with the electronic shutter, you can have faster shutter speeds than with the mechanical. For example, in the EM1 Mark II, the fastest shutter speed with mechanical shutter is 1/8000th of a second, and with the electronic shutter it's 1/32,000th of a second. So there is a lot faster shutter speeds available when using electronic shutter. And also with the electronic shutter you can have faster frame rates, which I mean that faster images per second. With the electronic shutter, for example with the EM1 Mark II, you can go all the way up to 60 frames per second, and with the mechanical shutter it's 15 frames per second. In that sense, the camera can be a lot faster if you use the electronic shutter. And here is the info about all other Olympus cameras. Have you used anti-shock shutter or the silent shutter? And if you have, where and how? Please let me know in the comments down below. And remember that by default, all the sounds of your camera, beeping sounds, and also the flash are by default turned off. So if you want to use the flash with the electronic shutter, there is a way, and I will tell you in the later part of the video when I talk about the settings which electronic shutter or the silent shutter and the anti-shock shutter have. And then there's one interesting thing about the electronic shutter also, because the mechanical shutter has a lifespan. It has a maximum amount of actuations. Is that a call? I don't know if that's the word, but you can use it a certain amount of times. And the newest Olympus cameras have about 400,000 actuations, or you can use it 400,000 times. It's guaranteed to last that long. But with the electronic shutter, there is no upper limit. So if you use only electronic shutter, the shutter will last forever. So that's also something to consider if you are afraid that your shutter will break if you use the camera too much. Just use the electronic shutter every once in a while, then it will save your shutter. But there are also some cons when using the electronic shutter. The way it works is that it scans the surface of the sensor, and it goes line by line from bottom to the top part. And if you have some moving subject and a long exposure, you might get some weird shapes to your subject. That is called rolling shutter. And the reason is that the photo in the bottom part of the sensor is taken a bit earlier than the part in the top of the sensor. So that's why your moving subject can be a bit skewed. Of course, this is not that bad. It's getting better and better because it can be corrected electronically, or the computer in the camera can correct that, but it's still there. It's a thing that it is there. And also, if the light is changing really rapidly, you might have some weird light differences in different parts of the image. And that might be a case if you have some flickering lights. And that's when you might want to use the mechanical shutter if you have those flickering lights, because it might be a bit weird with the electronic shutter. So even though electronic shutter is really great, there are some cons. Then there is so-called anti-shock shutter. With the anti-shock shutter, the camera will combine the electronic shutter and the mechanical shutter. The way it works is that it first activates the whole sensor, and then the exposure will stop when the mechanical shutter closes. So the first curtain shutter is electronic and the second curtain shutter is mechanical. And this way we can avoid some of the problems that we have with moving subject with electronic shutter. This is advised if you use long exposure or you want to have minimum vibrations to your camera. Remember, using the anti-shock shutter, there will be a sound because the mechanical shutter is in use. Both the silent shutter and the anti-shock shutter can be tweaked from the menu. There are settings that you can adjust. My example is from the M1 Mark II. Some Olympus cameras might have a bit different settings for the silent shutter and the anti-shock shutter. With the anti-shock shutter, you can adjust the delay when the shutter will actually open. So there will be a delay from the pressing the shutter button to the actual image taking. This works a bit same way as a self-timer, but it's still a bit different thing. But the result is the same. It will eliminate the vibrations that might be caused because of the pressing the shutter button. And of course, remember, you can always use the cable release, which is also advised. And the same thing can be adjusted with the silent shutter. You can have a delay when the actual image is captured. You can also turn noise reduction off when using silent shutter. Then you can set if you want the AF illuminator to be turned on, or you want to use the flash. You turn them on here. You can also turn the beeping sound, which I think is a bit ridiculous. Why would you want a beeping sound if you want to shoot silent? Beats me. Well, you can do that if you want. You can also use silent shutter and you can use the anti-shock shutter with self-timers. The easiest way to access both of these is using the Super Control Panel. And if you don't have the anti-shock available in Super Control Panel, then you need to go to the menu D and make it available. As you can see, there are lots and lots of different options how to use your Olympus camera and how to use the shutter. I think both of these, silent shutter and anti-shock shutter, are really useful in many situations. Like the silent shutter, as I said, you can shoot almost anywhere and without making any sound. The only small sound that there might be is if you are stopping down your lens. When the aperture closes, there might be a slight clicking sound, but it's a very, very small sound, and you barely can hear it. And then the anti-shock is really great if you're using your camera on a tripod or have really long shutter speeds. Then you can use that and keep the camera really steady. So take advantage of these great features of Olympus cameras. But hey, thanks for watching and bye for now.